Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. How we feeling today?
I'm feeling beautiful, man.
Yeah?
You look how you feel. That's so amazing.
Facts, dude. Man, I've been excited for this conversation since we connected, last week?
Yeah, it's been about a week.
I don't even know if it's been a week.
It feels like a week, but it probably was like 4 or 5 days.
The space moves by quick.
Yes, sir.
But dude, we connected and we got on a phone call, and instantly I was like, I love this dude's energy. I could chat with you for this podcast could probably be 6 hours if we really wanted it to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've just been shooting the shit since you got here, and honestly, the entire conversation that we had before this could be another podcast episode, right?
It would be.
Yeah.
For real.
So for people who don't know who you are, can you give a brief intro to yourself?
Yeah, so on Twitter, I go by Mr. Mint. Most people that know me. Kind of give you a brief synopsis of who I am and where I've come from. Born from the East Coast, single parent home, joined the military, had a real asphyxiation as a kid on like science, computer science and stuff like that. So, naturally went into the military. Essentially, my job was to be a security analyst. Essentially, and I support the DoD, Joint Service Terrorism, and I work with all the things that people hear about, but they don't really know what's going on in the space. And I did that for like almost 13 years. Went overseas, traveled around the world, been to Japan, Germany, Australia. I've been a lot of different places, but like I realized that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like I didn't want to clock in and ask people, and I think I got out. I want to say I got out in like 2012, 2013, I got out, had just gotten back from Afghanistan. I did a tour in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I was like, you know what, man, I'm going to move to Texas and I'm going to go open up my own like cell phone repair business. Like this is a true story. And that flopped horribly. Like it was just like not the right thing. And back then, that was when the iPhone was fresh and like all these devices anyways. So like, I had always had this infatuation with like the internet, like everybody. I mean, if you're in your mid 20s back then, like everybody was about the internet. It was like the, Facebook, MySpace, all those things. Right. And, over time, I decided that I was going to start to focus on like the tech side of things, like, managed services and things like that. So I wanted to kind of stay close to my roots, but I also wanted to stay involved in tech and like gaming and stuff like that, because it was still like a childhood dream. I wanted to make my own video games and stuff like that. And it wasn't until like, I had some success with a couple of ventures that I had been a part of. It wasn't until like late 2014. I was working with DoD. I was a contractor and I had flown over. I was actually in Bagram, and there was a guy that was there. It was a really interesting guy. He was always to himself. He never really did anything with like the other contractors. And I remember asking him, like, hey dude, what do you do, man? Like, cause I always see in your like your tent, like there was like tents out there. It was really, and he was like, dude, I'm in crypto. And I was like, I've heard about it, but I don't really know much about it. From that moment, and shout outs to Jordan, like he changed my life. From that point, those 8 months I spent out there in the desert with him, he taught me everything that I need to know. And from that point, I think 2014, Bitcoin, obviously early, super early. And then I got into transitioning into like, the other chains, the blockchain and like Ethereum and, Bitcoin went on this big run like 2 years later in 2016, 2017. And I'm kind of like giving you the build path to like where I came to this point. And all along during this time, right, I was thinking, I want to do something cool with blockchain technology. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to do it. I just know there's something I want to do with it. And, you know, I remember 2016 with Bitcoin, like, you know, finally making its climb and mass media going frenzy. I was like, dude, I'm early, because like we were talking about this 2-3 years ago, and now it's finally happening. And, you know, had some really good, you know, meme coin runs, if you want to call it. Back then, it was really the Wild West. There was only like a couple exchanges you could send money to. It was just scary times, but it was really fun. It gave you an adrenaline rush. And I remember there was a token by a founder called Tron, TRX Tron. I don't know if you remember it, right?
Oh, yeah.
2017. I'll never forget it. Like, they were like the biggest thing ever. Like, everybody was talking about them. They're going to be the next whatever. And I just remember he came out with something called, there was this thing called NFTs, and I was like, what is this stuff? So like they came out with a product called, I think they were Crypto Kitties or something like that. The first time I ever interacted with NFTs. And from that moment, one of the IPs that's a part of one of our projects now, I built the actual IP in 2017 that we're using now in my current project, which is kind of crazy to think, because that kind of set the path. Like, I was stuck then. I was like, dude, this is the craziest thing. Like, you're selling pictures for $70 and you just made it. Like, how is this happening? Like, why would they pay for that? Like, as a human, you're like trying to logically figure out, why would someone do that when you can just go buy a comic book or something, right? Like, digital collectibles have been around for a lot longer than people can imagine. But like, I think someone bought like a JPEG for like 100 Bitcoin or something. You can look it up, right? But there was something like that. But like back then, 2017, like obviously, you know, there was a rough time after that with Bitcoin kind of dropped down. But the desire and the prosperity potential of like the blockchain technology and all these coins was still like looming around me. And, you know, scrubbing a bit, fast forward a little bit more, 2020. And a lot of people that know me in real life know that like I own a very successful Web 2 e-commerce business on eBay. I sell sports cars and collectibles.
Oh, dude, we gotta. Okay, that'll be a whole nother conversation after this podcast.
Yeah.
But sports trading cards are my shit. Like, I've got a huge collection upstairs. I'll show you when we get done with this.
Okay, yeah, no, and that was like, I've always been a collector. Like, that was like really a big thing for me. So like, digital collectibles, hard asset collectibles, no different to me. Like, It's just the same nostalgia. Like, you know, the difference is you're not ripping packs open or whatever, right? But you're the mint button. So like, I just remember getting really deep into it. Like, and I ran this company up probably like $1 million in revenue in like 2 years, selling sports cars, like ground zero up, this like top eBay seller, power seller, everything. And I remember sitting in the office with my wife, and I was like, hey, you know, Jordan's messaged me. He's like, yo, you need to get on this NFT thing again. You need to get in here. And I was like, I was looking at her, I was like, what do I do? Like, he's never led me wrong. She was like, I mean, you know what you're doing. So I literally sold all my Jordan rookies, all my LeBron rookies, and I founded a Web3 company at the beginning of 2020. Like, I mean, sorry, not the beginning, but the late 2020, like December, before anybody like went crazy in 2021. Like, and then, you know what I did the entire 2021? All I did is I was an advisor. I was essentially assisting people with branding, development, and like, you know, mostly focusing on like the relationship side of things, because it was really nothing. There was no like NFTs for dummies. Obviously, you know, we all know history. Bored Ape Yacht was born, and then Cool Cats and everything on from that point on. You got, you know, CyberKongs. I fell in love a long time ago. I actually, like, it's like that girl you see one time in a coffee shop, and then you never see her again. And then you go by consistently praying that you see her, and you never see her. And then out of nowhere, you see her in an unawkward place, and you're like, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. And that's at that moment, the light bulb finally went on. I literally sold every collectible I had, and I literally poured that money into the space. And I took a lot of, you know, beatings along that path to being a founder early on, mostly from the advisory style. But like, we tried some things and kind of piggybacked on some different things while we were in that period of time. And what I learned was I needed to study human psychology first, because that was what was driving. It was a speculative market. But then there was this whole thing about people were like attached to the images. And I was like, you got to find the right brand. Like, you got to find what really grabs people and like makes them feel connected to stuff. Right. So, you know, we went into this process to learn and to study. So for an entire year in 2021, we studied. I call it learning by trial and error, understanding, not launching projects, so to speak, but mostly like assisting different deployments, trying to educate people in different paths, advising in situations. So I saw a lot of different things. And obviously you see rugs, you see people crash and burn, and you see a lot of wins. Like there was tons of wins burn during that time. And then my first project, I'll never forget it. You know, I had set around like $70,000-$80,000 to the side, and I was like, all right, we're gonna do a project. This is it. Like I've learned enough. And dude, I hosted a NFT, and this is like when NFT events in real life were like a thing. People were not as anonymous anymore. Like people were doxing themselves to an extent. Like you're still a Twitter name in person, but we're not doxed.
Yeah.
So I was living in Vegas at the time. There was this thing called NFT meetups or something for just like people in Vegas who want to get educated or was curious. So like, you know, I was talking to the guy that was founding. I was like, hey, dude, I want to do something crazy. I want to host an NFT project party at a casino. And he was like, dude, that's insane. Like that, we've got to do it. So we did it. And it was amazing. I bought drinks for an entire community, and I never built momentum. That project, and it, just for those people listening, Galactic Eagle, which I airdropped to my community now for free, I built it in 2021 and gave it to my community 2 years later for free because we never took it off the ground. I still have the Ethereum contracts that I paid out the wazoo for because ETH was insane.
Oh yeah.
Right. And then like all the assets, all the marketing, everything, all the activations that were planned for it, never did anything with it. Couldn't do anything with it. So I went back to the drawing board. My team, and mind you, and I was talking to you about this earlier, like my continuity in my team is 13 years long. Like 3 out of the people that I work with on a consistent basis on the day-to-day, I've known them for 13 years. Like we know each other's families. We used to shoot the shit back in the day when like we were just like, this is like real brotherhood. Like let's build something cool and go through hell to do it and then see what we can get out of it on the other side. And I just remember like, we were all let down. Like it was just like, damn, it just didn't work. And I was like, dude, just lay it on ice. But you know what? You guys trust me, right? I'm great at creating things. So I kept building IPs. Like I just kept building stuff. So 2022 comes on, and I'm kind of giving like the story onto how like we got to the point where, and then you can go to the segue of that. But like, you know, 2022 comes and I build this new IP called Owlpha. And I have this infatuation with birds. People get it now. Like, I'm coming from a tech background, working for DoD, working in the cybersecurity space. You know, we worked 12, 13, 16 hours. We called ourselves the night owls. Like, so it was just like this cybernetic creature, whatever. So we built this dope IP that I thought was dope. It wasn't like the typical right facing, left facing, quarter face. It was straight, you know, just a flat 50-50 image that was just, you know, like a totem pole kind of structure. And, dude, we built it. Like we got everything ready, got the site, contracts ready. We're like, cool, we got everything ready to go. And literally the next month, Proof comes out with Moonbirds and shoves a dagger in my heart again. I'm like, I can't drop this because it's an alpha community, right, with a tool. And I'm just like, all right, let's just be degens and just study the algorithm of like consumption and what people are doing consistently. So 2022 was just another form of us kind of like embedding ourselves in the structures of how things kind of went. And that was a rough year for a lot of people, right? Like 2022 was a rough year for everybody. Yeah. And I learned a lot. I think everybody learned a lot. And I think I remember I'm giving you guys a really true story about it. I'm sitting in my kitchen. We're in Texas. And I go to my wife and I kind of like softly started up my business on my eBay business online, and it was generating a good amount of money, and I just wasn't happy with it. And it's like, you know, when you've done something and you've gotten close and you felt like you left too much skin on it, like I didn't really try. Like maybe I put it all. I remember going in the kitchen to her and I was like, hey, am I crazy for trying this NFT thing again? Like, would you like be mad if I tried it again? And she was like, I mean, at this point we've already got money in there that we can't do anything. Might as well try it again. So, true story. I go to Magic Eden because I'm thinking, dude, we can't launch on ETH. It's too expensive. Gas prices. It's a pay to win space. Like I don't have the money or resources to do it. Let me look at other chains that are more economical and have like smaller market caps or whatever. So like I looked at Sol and I was like, that's still too big, right? I'm not there yet. And I looked at Aptos, Avalanche, and all these other different chains. And then I remember I go to Magic Eden and I'm like, clicking around, they have this new thing. You know, they had a new initiative like bringing other chains to drive volume to their platform. And I saw Polygon. I was like, who the hell builds on Polygon? I was like, there's nothing on Polygon. It's just scammers and rugs and like those fake airdrops that kind of fill up our hidden folder. And I'll never forget it. I saw a project called Wreck Dogs. Is it Wreck Dogs? Yes, Wreck Dogs. And I was like, damn, this is really clean art. They have the guts to do it here. I didn't know anything about it. I just followed the socials, hopped in the Discord, and I was like, damn, there's some hype in here. And I still see the typical smoke and mirrors that you see in most NFT projects, right? But still, there was some interest there. And then, like, I was a part of the mint. It sold out, and I was like, the big light bulb went on. I was like, yo, if they can do it, I can do it. And then I go back to Pixels, who's like one of my close friends. Like, I've known him for 13 years. He's been a part of every legitimate Web2 business I've ever built. Like, we've got that his degree in graphic design and marketing. Like I probably gave him half course studies and intern hours working for my company to help him, like, push him to that level. And I call him up. I was like, dude, I've got an idea. It sounds a little crazy, but I think I figured out where we're going to go. And he was like, where? I'm like, Polygon. He was like, and he just hung up on me. I was like, bro, he was like, why would we go to Polygon, bro? Like, nothing over there. The coin's not even, I was like, look, dude, I don't know why, but I just saw a project sell out and raise over $100,000 on Polygon. And like, we don't need the moonshot. We don't need to do that. We just need to think of it in the macro. We need micro success and then continue to build on it. And I kept talking to him, beating him about it. And he was like, all right, whatever. So he actually got into Rectals. At one point we were like, top 10 holders in that project. And like, we learned a lot about the communities. And that's when I started to like network and whatnot. And then obviously Owlpha ended up being one of the, if not one of the hypest project launches on Polygon to this day, over 1 million in volume in less than 45 days on the chain. That's literally obscure to most people that things like that can happen. And then it was because I saw someone else do it. I never gave up. And the people that I've built with over the course of this time period, like, those people are still part of my life. They still are part of these projects. Like, Scott Whitney, Mikey from JDM Labs, his own front end, back end, Solidity, everything. We have it all in house. And the difference is we don't quit. Like, we just kept at it. And over time, I felt like, they always say, like, preparation meets opportunity. That's when success hits. And I felt like we went through hell. We prepared. And then my ass, as crazy as I am, was like, yo, Polygon's the opportunity. Let's take a shot at it. And then now, look at what we're starting to build, look what we're creating. And it all started years ago when I was in the desert and I met a guy named Jordan that was literally the biggest introvert. And I was like, how do you stay sane in a space out here if you don't talk to people? He's like, dude, I'm so deep in this crypto thing, like, you just don't understand. There's like, he was talking to people on message boards about Bitcoin. Like, that's how crazy this is. And they built communities in message boards. Like, now we use Telegram, Discord, and all these other mediums, but back then it was it was like,
oh yeah,
primitive as shit.
Oh yeah.
So like, now looking back on it, it's like we've lived a whole life over into this point now. And it's just like, dude, like, we can do so much here, and we can do, because we've done it with so little. We know how to be efficient. We know how to be effective with what we have, because it's almost like the humble beginnings. Like, I see my mom growing up a single parent. She'll make whatever she can with what she has. I have that same mentality embedded into how I operate businesses. Like, we don't need a lot to make something good. We can use a couple ingredients and make some really good pasta. Like, and that's essentially the way that we think and how it's worked. And then that continuity with us having that brethren and having that relationship is why we've been able to do what we have to, because I can't attribute to anything else other than that. And like, now here we are on your podcast talking about Polygon and why, all the things associated with why I'm here and like who I am is built on, one, military. And without that, I don't know I would be the person that I am. And then really hyper focusing like self-development and like understanding. Like, I always tell this to the people that listen to a lot of our spaces. There's like 3 fundamentals to my success in life. And that's, one, understanding my weaknesses, like really understand, looking in the mirror and saying, okay, I suck at this, right? I'm a horrible manager in time. Number 2, understanding my strengths. I'm a great communicator and motivator and salesman, whatever you want to call it, right? I know those, like, that's my jam. Like, that's what I am. I can go toe to toe with anybody, and I know my shit. And then number 3, which is the most important, is being self-aware of where you are and where you're going. Those are the 3 fundamentals I live by every day. And all along, we went through that kind of like that triangle, that trifecta of effects till we got to Polygon and realized, yo, there's limited competition here, maximum levels of prosperity opportunity. I use that word because Like, because we're looking from a business side. You know this, business 101. There's a need. You fill that need.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And that's why we came to Polygon, to build an analytical tool. And it's kind of taken a life of its own. So, like, this is like, people are like, it's overnight success, but you know the story. Like, it's all the work we did in the shadows that no one knew about that led us to this point. And then now, like, I always say it all the time, like, we've not even gotten started yet. There's so much more for us to do. And we're just getting into the thick of it. I wake up every day excited because I'm like, dude, we could do anything we want to here. Like, that's how crazy it is. We watch people make millions after millions of dollars over the last 3 years, right? And some of them didn't do anything but go feed their own selfish wants and then not think about the human impact associated with crowd raising and taking in money. Because, like, you can't do that on Kickstarter. Right?
Yeah.
This became the Wild West of Kickstarters. Like, that's what it came. You put out a cartoon character, raise a bunch of money, and then you could just be like, I don't care about it anymore. But I got this nice Porsche 911 and a new slab up in Miami. That's what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then you got people and there were some good people, right, that really stuck through the fire, but I felt like it rubbed off because, like, you're like, what is performance in the space? So, no, I think, hopefully when we're done with this podcast, people get to understand, like, who I am, where I came from, humble beginnings, and that I understand how to make a lot out of nothing. Like, that's what was, like, drilled in me. My grandfather drilled it. You don't need a lot. Like, just take what you have and make the most out of it. If you do get a lot, if you're blessed to have a lot, you need to do a lot with it, right? So, like, that's kind of our ethos, right? That's the Manifest Labs, the Owlpha ethos is, like, we don't need a lot. We can do a lot with a little. And, we've proven that every step of the way. And obviously, this, we've talked about it briefly, but I don't think people understand that. So this is I'm blessed to be here, to be having this conversation, because 2 years ago, I would have never imagined it. Like, even though I felt it in my gut, because like I said, I believe in affirmation. I believe in manifestation. I believe in, like, writing and willing your way. If you're familiar with the book, The Alchemist.
Oh, yeah. Love that book. Got it right over there.
Changed my life. Yeah, I saw that. Changed my literal life. The Alchemist changed my life, because I truly believe we have the ability to write our own song. And, like, that's how I felt. Like, at this point, it feels like, okay, now it's, you read something, you continue to digest it, and then you start to beat it into your head till, like, you live it. It can, like, I tweeted out yesterday, like, I feel like I'm living in the future and in the past at the same time, because, like, all I can do is remember about when we didn't have this happening, and now it's happening. It's like a reoccurring circle. I have deja vu over and over again. And I think that's, like, that fundamental alchemy. Like, we're writing what we believed the entire time, and now it's manifesting into reality. And that's what we preach to our community. Like, hey, we can do it, you can do it. So let's will our way to 100th floor, right?
No, I mean, and that's what it takes. I mean, that's honestly, like, when we first got on the phone last week, I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. Like, I think I contacted you right after, I want to say, Frank bought one of your NFTs.
Yeah, he did post it.
And right after that, I reached out to you, and then we got on a phone call, and then I want to say right after that, we got onto a Twitter space, and right away, I was like, this dude, like, I'm ready to run through a fucking wall for this guy, right? Like, I was like, I feel like I'm suiting up for the Super Bowl right now. He's head coach, or he's at middle linebacker, and he's leading us out on the defense, right? And it's like, and so I love that sort of attitude, because, we're in a peak bear market right now, right? You need that. And I think one of the things about the people that are in the space right now is that you're resilient. If you're here right now, you're resilient. You have to be, right? Because this 2022 was hard. 2022 was brutal, right? And I remember when I went full time into the podcast, I want to say it was like a month after I was full time was FTX crashing, and I remember I got on a phone call with the project founder, Liberty Square. He's a Solana project, and he called me up. He was in Portugal. It was like 5:30 in the morning in Portugal. He calls me up and he's like, "Are you good?" And I was like, I mean, I'm a little sad right now. This has been a tough week, and I was like, financially took a hit, and then, I was like, I worry about the podcast. Like, I want to do this full time. I really want to give my best to the Web3 space. And he's like, dude, I'll make sure you're good. He's like, I'll do what I got to do to make sure you're good. Wow. And I was like, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And I needed that message at that time, right? And then it was like right after that, after I was worried about, like, are people still going to be willing to come out here and do the podcast and everything like that? It was like the space was depressed for like 2 days. And then everybody was like, all right, let's get to work, right? Like, we got work to do. And that's the thing I love about this space. It's so resilient. And there are so many great people that are here that are ready to build, that are still here trying to build and everything like that. And that's what I love about it, because the people who came in a lot during the bull market and whatnot, there were a lot of grifters. There were a lot of people who were looking to take money out of the ecosystem. But the people who are here right now, they're building. They're here, right? And that's why I love your story. And that's why I was excited to have you on, because when you mentioned when you were talking to your team and you're like, you know what, we're going to go on to Polygon. And they were like, dude, what the fuck is on Polygon? That was my same reaction when I first started talking to Frank a few months ago and he mentioned the idea to me of like going on to another chain or whatever. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I was like, the one chain I do feel like I hear enough about is Polygon. And I was like, I feel like their business dev team is like always connecting with, like, they're always doing something with some major Web 2 company and stuff like that. And I was like, but I don't know, like, do they have a marketplace? Do they have anything going on over there? But I was like, I feel like they're always the one that's making news, right? When you hear about like any big Web 2 brand that's doing anything in NFTs, it's always on Polygon, right? And I was like, I don't know why that is. I don't know, whatever. But I was like, regardless of the reason, regardless of if they're shelling out money left and right, it doesn't matter. There's still things happening on Polygon. But I was like, I don't know who these project founders are, if there actually are project founders, right? And so, obviously once you and I connected, I was like, dude, we got to do a podcast because people need to know people like you exist, right? That's first thing. And then second thing is just knowing like how motivated you are and how excited about what you're building and everything like that. So I guess what I want to know from you is when you decided, okay, you first were like, I'm going to do a project on ETH. You kind of have all these different challenges that keep getting thrown your way. And so you go, okay, you know what? I need to take a step back. I need to do something slightly different. Okay, you know what? I'm looking at Solana. I'm not ready for that yet. You know what? I'm going to go to Polygon, right? What was it like trying to build on Polygon at that time? What was it like? Were you able to contact the Polygon team? What was your relationship like with them? And I guess, like, what has it been like building on Polygon, especially before Mint?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question because, like, I think the consensus was, like, I was coming from an ecosystem that was associated with pay to win. So, like, these guys were coming in with cash. They were using, trade lines, whatever they needed to drive traffic and engagement. And then at that point, I believe in 2021, Instagram was a median for hype-driven projects. Like, I forgot there was, like, a big scandal with Mark Cuban and, like, one of his constituents was running like NFTs now or like an NFT something page, and they were like shilling projects that were rugs and taking like 30 grand a post. Like, we just couldn't compete, right? And I think when I went over to Polygon and I was looking at the ecosystem, I was like, why do I keep seeing BDs from Polygon with Utes faces running around in Twitter spaces? Like, because I like to like take a deep dive in the analytical approach to anything that I assess, especially from a business perspective, because I'm thinking, what is going on there and why is it happening? And then I started to think about what I've experienced on the other chains. And I'm like, I've never seen an Ethereum business development lead in any regard, in any type of Twitter space, let alone the founder on stage in the Polygon space talking about NFTs. I just never saw that. And then people that were like native to Soul, they were like, dude, no one does that here. Like, what are you talking about? So when I got to Polygon, I'll never forget it. I threw up the Twitter. I threw up Owlpha's Twitter. Actually, I didn't throw it up. I mean, I threw up the first post because it had already been there because the Twitter had been there since 2022. It just had been this placeholder, like when the time is right, when it's right. So I put up that first post, and I remember putting in the bio on Polygon, and I put hashtag Polygon. And I'll never forget that day. I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning, and there was like 2 business development leads from Polygon in my DMs like, yo, this sounds kind of cool, man. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, you guys are really, this is a scam? Are you guys really from Polygon?
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you guys really from Polygon? He was like, yeah, you want to add us in telegrams with like a bunch of other business BDs. And then like, I'm talking to Greg and I'm talking to this guy. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like, you guys are really out here doing this. Like, no, there's a huge initiative from Sandeep down to like exhilarate the whole NFT market. And right. And then obviously I had my exposure to Rec Dogs, and I thought that was insane. And then I really saw there was other chains like Aptos and like Cardano that was looking for even crypto, like Chronos. Like, they were coming over because they were static. It was stagnant in those areas, and they were looking for something that had potential. And you just made a valid point. And then I looked at all the news market points that I looked from an analytical perspective, like all the Web 2 companies, right? I always talk about this, and it's a simple principle in business. Like, you can't plant a seed and expect to harvest it the same day. Sandeep isn't planting seeds expecting you guys to see the vision immediately. He's planting and sowing seeds that will reap benefits 3 to 4 years from now, which will set him far apart from any other layer 2 chain ever, because they just didn't get it. Like, I see people like, yeah, he's doing all this stuff with Web 2, because the reality is mass adoption isn't now. It's later.
Yeah.
He's building for later. So he's building those relationships. I don't care how much money he shells out to do it. He knows I'm planting the seeds, and some of those will be harvested later on, which will drive a huge amount of mass adoption into the Web3 space. And I just like a bullish founder. Like, this dude was talking the talk, talking his shit, and people hated him. I used to see threads about Sandeep. I don't like him. He's too arrogant and blah, blah, blah. I was like, but he's the most active, upfront, and transparent person I've ever seen. And he's grinding in the trenches to push the narrative, a positive narrative for a chain that is essentially considered like the redhead stepchild of all the other L1s. And like, it's built on Ethereum, low gas. Like, you think about what he was providing, the tech associated with it, and then you look at all the instruments he put in place and having business development in place to be able to kind of curate relationships and show support to builders and founders and creators. I was like, dude, this has got to be a dream, because I'm on a call with Polygon, and this is the chain. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a chain. Like, you're not talking to Sol's owner. You're not talking to Ethereum's. Like, you don't talk to them. I can talk. I'm on stage with Sandeep. He's rocking my PFP. He's rocking an Owlpha. He's on stage in our AMAs talking to our community about why he changed his mind and mentality associated with NFTs. Because the one thing that's missing from the DeFi space is emotion, that association, that kind of like imprints on you, that kind of bears that kind of like, when you buy, like I use this as an example to people that when we talk and do spaces, like there's such a strong brand pairing when it comes to the psychology associated with Starbucks, because even if you don't feel like it's always that great, you're tied to it.
Yeah.
Because you feel like it's just comfortable going like, my wife's like, where's the Starbucks? I'm like, well, shit, there's a cafe called Cafe Tree right there. Why can't we go get you a mocha from right there? I want Starbucks. But you always talk shit about it. The reality is it's built that kind of cohesive, like symbiotic relationship associated with it. And I think what Polygon has done is built that type of association and symbiotic relationship with the founders and the brands on the chain, because they're trying to do something a bit different. Like, it's not us using the chain. It's a mutual benefit. Like, when I look at Ethereum projects, and this is the logic around what I was thinking, when I look at an Ethereum project, their objective is to leverage Ethereum to make resource. The difference in the mentality in Polygon is like, we understand that there's a back and forth, like a scratch and back of sorts, but the chain is actually supporting us while we're taking and gaining resource from it. So like, it's a mutual benefit, because they know the more we grow, the more they grow. Ethereum is just kind of just in the right place, right time, the right recipe. Don't really need to do anything. It's just a monster. It just continues to churn and pump out millions and millions of dollars of volume per day. And then you look at a chain like Polygon, which is in its infancy, and Sandeep has it in his mind. This is why I wanted to be on Polygon, is like planting seeds, big seeds. I'm looking at it like, yo, do you know how long it takes for a bamboo shoot to shoot through the ground before it goes? And what happens when it gets out the ground? It grows 15 times faster than any tree or vegetation around it, because it's done all of its it's done all that curating below the surface. And as soon as it hits the light, it's straight up. And I think that's what Polygon is. It is a bamboo shoot that's literally been germinating under the soil. And in 2 to 3 years from now, we're going to look back and like, I was an idiot that I didn't invest in that chain and I didn't take part in it. And that's the logic, because, you know, I don't like going the beaten path. I think we'd already seen what that looked like. Everybody's built on Sol. Everyone's built on Ethereum. It was just a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And it's still there, right? Like, it's still permeating the PTSD, the jadedness of those chains and all the things associated with the graveyard of a gazillion PFP projects that exist on those chains. It's still there. But when I looked at Polygon, it was like clean, fresh. Nothing was going on. I thought, man, this is a great place to build. And I think like there were I don't think we ever had growing pains, bro. I honestly, this is literally the truth. I launched a Twitter with that first post. BDs and Polygon reached out. We built a little hype. I reached out to Matic News, Matic Man. They allowed me on their stage to pitch my project. And literally the rest is history. These guys, I had never seen communities rally around another project. It was like, I was the first day at school and everybody's out on the basketball court and they find out you know how to shoot. They're like, dude, this guy knows how to shoot, right? Like, that's how I felt. Like, oh, he knows how to shoot. Like, we need to like support this guy. We need to have him on our team. And these were other founders. Like on Ethereum, they don't do that.
Yeah.
Soul, they don't do that. DJ and Ape Academy's not doing collab spaces with OK Bears. That's not a thing. And if anything, it's a tribalism. Like, we're the best on the chain. Like, all the money needs to be to us. But instead of looking at it from a collective perspective, where you have to understand that the objective is for people from out of Web3 to see this as valuable, it's really Web3 versus Web2, not Soul, ETH, and Polygon versus everybody. And then how do we figure out the biggest issue is how to get people to onboard?
Right. Well, I think the tribalism, because you bring up a good point there, and I think the tribalism is quite strong, right? Like, I think there's like I've had people ask me before, they're like, are you only going to have, this is pre me having like Luca Nuts from Pudgy Penguins on, and Amanda Terry from On-Chain Monkeys, but like, at that point, I'd only had Solana projects on, right? And they were like, are you going to have other chains on? And I was like, well, yeah, of course, right? Because using the sports trading card world, that would be like me saying, okay, I'm only ever going to open up basketball packs, right? Like, why would I not open up football? Why would I not open up hockey, soccer, baseball, everything, right? Like, to me, if you enjoy collectibles, if you enjoy digital collectibles, why would I not have on Ethereum projects? Why would I not have Polygon? I want to learn what they're doing. If I think it's dope, whatever. And so I think the tribalism, and I get it, people have bags and stuff, right? And I think tribalism will develop in Polygon too, right? Like, it's only a matter of time. Everybody, because the thing is, we all want to be the number one everything, right? Like, there's part of that's pride, right? Like, I want to be the number one podcast in Web3. Like, that is for sure my goal, right? But at the same time, like, I try to remind myself all the time, it's like, I don't really view anybody else as competition. And the way I say that is because I want them to do well, right? Like, if in true competition, that means that you have to do better than them. And I'm like, I want to do well for myself, for sure. But I also want them to do well, because if the space is going to grow, we need more people doing well, right? We can't have we can't have just Yuga doing well, or just D-Gods doing well, or just Pudgy or Azuki or whatever. And so last week, when Luca Nuts from Pudgy Penguins put out their Pudgy plushies and toys on Amazon,
which was dope.
Crazy, and it sold out day one. They made, I want to say it was over like $600,000 in 24 hours. Crazy successful. And I saw people from every chain congratulating them, and I was like, dude, this is great. Like, this is starting to remove some of those walls of tribalism that we need to remove, because the reality of it is, if there's a great project, people should support it, right? If there's a great founder, people should support it. I'm hoping that people watch this podcast from Ethereum or Solana and go, hey, I love what he's saying. I want to learn more about Owlpha. I want to learn more about how do I buy, on Polygon if they're not so familiar, right? And so I feel like that's the importance of all of this, is removing some of that tribalism and then going back, back the other way. Like, I hope people from Polygon go, hey, I want to go support the Solana project. I want to go support this Ethereum project. Like, that's how right now, there's a lot of friction, which makes it difficult. I think once people are used to buying on one chain, it does take a second to get used to buying on another chain. That I get, right? There is some stuff you have to educate yourself on. There is some friction points there. But, outside of that, it's like, dude, we need to get to the point where people who are just supporting digital collectibles can do that in an easy way and not really care what chain it's operating on, right? My question for you would be, as somebody who's now been in Polygon for a minute, when I first came onto Polygon, my first experience with that was the migration from Solana to Polygon, right? And I had some struggles there with trying to convert like some dust over to Polygon, and then trying to get some Matic, and then I had Weath, and I had to, all this stuff, right? So from a UI perspective, what do you think Polygon, like, I'll say this, Solana is very easy to use, right? Like, for the most part, it doesn't take much to understand Solana, right? Ethereum takes a little bit more effort. You got to understand the gas. You got to understand all of that, right? So, but mind you, once again, I don't care. Like, some people, they get into, well, this chain's better than this chain because of that, right? Regardless, I think at the end of the day, I think all chains can succeed. They're all going to have different use cases and all of that. But from a UI perspective only, what do you think is the biggest challenge that Polygon needs to overcome to get more people from Solana or Ethereum to go, okay, hey, I'm willing to buy this project on Polygon?
Yeah, I think that's probably like the number one, the big elephant in the room, is the friction associated with getting Matic. I mean, that's just, it's atrocious. It's definitely a labor. Especially you're not used to it, right? Like bridging over ETH over any of those type of things, or converting. It's the number one issue and constraint for people to transition over and smoothly, because you can just go to any exchange and buy Sol, transition it to your Phantom wallet, boom. Same with ETH and various other chains. But Matic in general is a little bit more complex in the sense that you have to do a few more extra steps. And like, there's this saying, keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
And it's not keeping it simple, stupid. And I think Sandeep understands this. The development team and the tech side understand this. And now that we're getting to the point where people are paying attention, they're like, dude, this is an issue. Like, I think there was like people used to champion the fact that you had to do some technical things to get Matic when it wasn't so cool to be in Matic. Now that people are trying to see it as viable and trying to rationalize it, it's not cool and it's not fun and it's frustrating and you can lose. And I think it goes down to the leaders in the communities in Polygon to educate people. Like, obviously I have an initiative associated with what we're doing to focus on that cross chain, allowing people to understand how to come over here and buy Matic, how to do it efficiently. There are some things going on in the space where people are trying to remove that particular friction point. And when that's done and there's a quick way to on and off ramp like that, dude, it opens up the gate for everything. And I think, once again, it goes down to those three fundamentals: knowing your strengths, weaknesses. We know Polygon is great, low gas, efficient, high efficiency, and then we know their weaknesses. That the friction associated with getting Matic to be the bridge, all that stuff is just a nuisance. WETH is a nuisance. There's got to be a way to be able to just buy ETH straight to WETH. Like, why would I need to go bridge it and wait 38 minutes? Or, I mean, there's other ways to cut that time now where you're just waiting 5 and 3. But generally, those things were not viable or visible at the time for people to just run to it and do it. I think education, and I think it builds on the community. Like, you can't get mad that people aren't looking at you if you're not providing them, like, hey, this is how you use it. I remember when Visa and MasterCard rolled out the touchless pay, like just the tap pay. Yeah, people were completely lost. Like, what side do I do it on, right? And I think it's the same thing here. Like, you have to adapt to the current changes. The current is constantly moving. The Web3 space is like, boom, 1 month is 3 months in this space. And we've drawn so much attention and so much activity on the chain to this point, right? High marker points. At one point there was, I think about a month ago, at one point there was more NFT volume on Polygon there was on Sol. And no knock to Sol, but that's just like something that no one expects to ever happen. I mean, obviously you got like Trump trading and stuff like that, which one is not your typical atypical native poly process, because they're using fiat, they're using credit cards, stuff like that to buy Trump NFTs. Same with like Reddit NFTs. But like the natives, like they get a joy out of, oh, we're technical, right? No, let's keep this super simple. Like, this allow them to buy it and go spend it, not having to wait. Because what's the difference in this space between 5 and 10 minutes in a mint? It could be everything.
Oh yeah.
Like, no one has the time to wait that long. Like, dude, I need this Matic now because I need to get in the mint now. Like, if you had to wait 5 or 6 minutes to get Sol when you borrowed it to switch it over your wallet, there would be pandemonium. People would be losing their freaking minds. And I think ETH has that kind of like bottleneck threshold problem where when gas is high, like you just suffer, right? But I think Sol has that advantage where you don't. You got it, you get it in seconds. And Polygon can do that when you're on it and you have the Matic, boom, boom, boom. But if you're coming from outside of Matic into it, it's a trip across the country. And that's the problem. And I think, Sandeep and I'm aware, I think there's smart people in place right now making those things that need to be done to be able to find a solution to fix this issue. And I think once that happens, I think Polygon is on a whole different leg. Then it's about quality projects. Then it's about visibility, representation, branding, IP, that association. And I think once we get past that, because people are still coming over. Like, I get people, Utes, all the time. Like, we talk to them every day in our Discord. Like, yo, this bridging thing is nuts. I'm like, look, dude, just use this site. Like, There has to be like a formal zone where people can just go and boom, all the information right there, simple. And even not even that, just allow them to buy the shit straight up. Like, why do we got to do all this extra, all the money in the world? Like, literally, the blockchain is made up of all the money in the world, and yet we can't fix out one little issue that is primitive in nature to change the behavioral pattern buying structure of how people come into our ecosystem, which could be the hugest catalyst in mass adoption from other chains. And I'm not even talking Web2. I'm just saying Sol, ETH natives, any of those chains coming into Polygon and seeing it as a viable opportunity. That is that point of like massive resistance. And I think we're working on it. I think that they're working on it. I mean, I've heard Frank say some things that they're working on. I know some other teams that are like, let's make it, this is a personal issue, like let's fix it. And I talk about it on a space, like you can't see these issues for 2-3 years and never do anything about it, and then wonder why people are complaining and shitting on the chains, because like it's not easy to get there, it's not easy to get over here. And we got to make it simple, because if you spent your entire NFT life buying the L1 and then moving it to your wallet and not having to do anything else, step 1, step 2, and then all of a sudden you have to do 1, 2, 3, you're going to be completely discombobulated and you're going to be pissed. Like, this is too complicated. I don't want to do it. And it takes too long. Right. So, I remember the first time I minted Rec Dogs, and this is a true story, and it breathes life to what the common argument is. I minted my Rec Dogs, and then I saw the floor dip a bit. And I was like, shit, I need some more Matic. And I had to wait 28 minutes to get public. And guess what happened? It sold out.
Yeah.
And I never got to take it, and it ran up, and I didn't get, and that was that frustrating moment. I was mad, but I said, at least I know that there are people that pre-planned ahead, and that's just the way you got to play. So I think that's going to get fixed. I think, we're working on some things to kind of educate people. We're doing some very aggressive things to get people to pay attention. And I think there's the powers to be are aware of it. And I think you can't get forward in life unless you're aware of your issues and your shortcomings. And I think that's one of the biggest ones. I think they're making the changes to do that. I think we'll see those relatively quickly. Like, I think that's going to happen fairly quickly. Now that you got like a big brand like Utes over here, like, if their voice is fairly loud, right? Like, they're like, dude, this is horrible. And I think that's just one of the problems. The real problem is that they don't see quality project opportunity because of the sizing metric associated with the other two chains. Like, we're trading at like 80 cents. Like, you guys are trading at $20. ETH is at 1,800. And then the sizing of how projects run in those chains is completely like not even close to what we're doing. Like, the numbers are completely different. So like,
it's interesting though, because if you take, so we recently saw a big run on meme coins, right?
Yep.
And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but for me, when I bought a meme coin, I don't know if it was just the psychological aspect of it, but when I knew I was getting like 6 billion of this meme coin, I liked it more than when I bought one that was at like 3 cents, right? Because when I bought one at 3 cents, I only got so much, right? So I would only get, maybe a few thousand or whatever, right? But when I bought one that was, 0.00000 blah, 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 then, and I was getting, now I've got 6 billion of this or 6 million, whatever. I was like, okay, like, and to me, psychologically, I was like, this is more fun, right? So the way I look at it sometimes and it is different with NFTs a little bit of like, when I see a floor price of like 100 SOL, I'm like, damn, this is crazy high. When in reality, it's like, whatever that would be, like a little over 1 ETH, right? And so then when I look at like a Polygon project, when I was asking you, like, what is your guys' floor price, whatever, I was like, you got to tell me it in USD, because to be honest, I don't even know what that is in USD, right? And so to me, I'm like, it's almost an opportunity to kind of feed that psychological part of like, it's kind of fun to see something that is to me, it's more fun for me to see something that's at a 6,000 Matic floor than like whatever that would be in ETH, whatever that would be, like 2.5 ETH, right? To me, I'm like, that 6,000 kind of looks fun, right? Like, so sometimes I feel like that might be even considered a good thing. But I guess like, okay, so here would be my question for you. I think, when we talk about the UI issues and some of the frustration of transferring over and exchanging things and stuff like that, to me, that means opportunity, right? Like, I think a lot of people, if you're a builder in the space right now, there's a lot of opportunity to build on a Polygon, right? Like, there were a lot of people who came into Solana in early 2021 and have been building and have built really cool features. And I'm hoping now we see that on Polygon, right? Like, I think it's a good thing to have really strong blockchains that have strong use cases and have good tech built out for it. And once again, remove a lot of that friction, right? It's not that difficult to explain to somebody how to buy an NFT on Solana or on ETH, right? Polygon, it takes a little bit more work, so that means to me that there's more room for development, right? So and obviously now that we've got Utes on Polygon, right? We've got a lot more attention over to Polygon that probably wasn't there at the beginning part of 2021 or 2023, right? So with that, I guess I want to hear what was your true candid reaction when you heard that Utes were coming over to Polygon? Because at that point, you had already started building on Polygon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your reaction when you heard that news?
Yeah, it was actually, I think it was a mixed bag, to be honest with you. And I think when they came over, we were around like 160 Matic trading consistently, which is, once again, unprecedented because most projects don't trade at that metric point. And I remember thinking about like reading, because I hold NFTs in all NFT projects in Polygon because I like to read their threads and read their conversation because I think that's like the best forming of like gathering data and information. My form of R&D is reading the thoughts of the people that actually make up the ecosystem consistently. And like I feel like it was a mixed bag. Like my initial reaction was like, they're gonna come over here and they're gonna hate it because there's nothing really exciting for them to do consistently, because the whole purpose of holding an NFT is to take joy in the chain itself. They were not necessarily happy about coming to the Polygon in general. People from our side was like, oh, wow, they're going to come over here and maybe they buy stuff. My idea was like, look, you're shoving somebody that doesn't really want to move over to a chain that isn't really that exciting, that has a ton of issues that need to be sorted out and has no analytical tools, no rarity association, and has one of the most clumsy methods of purchasing their native token to be able to buy. And I was thinking to myself, like, this is not going to be fun initially. I don't think it's going to be fun. I was very apprehensive about it. And I think the general consensus was there's a potential that they'll come over and then people are like, oh, you throwing Polygon, so we've got to go buy Polygon. No, that's not what happened. In fact, that never happened, to be honest with you. Did Utes take interest in Owlpha? Absolutely. But it was like 10,000 Utes and 30, Utes. I mean, like 10,000 Utes and 30 Utes actually coming into Owlpha to be interested in what we had going on, because to be honest with you, they were still trying to figure out what was going on. You can't know where all the best spots to eat at if you just moved to town. Like, they didn't know what was going on. And then we didn't have medians in which they could look at to discern this information or data points to make it make sense. Because like if I go to Seoul, guess what I do? I go to any of the Tedser, I go to Magic Eden, any of the platforms that allow me to have an analytical picture, and I can see what's trending, what's pumped, what was what. You come to Polygon, you're like, dude, what is over here? There are people building there, but there's no maps. There's no way for them to like understand what's happening under the hood. And I just knew when Utes came over, and myself, and I didn't share this publicly because I don't want anybody to think that I was like, oh, you're not excited about Utes. It wasn't that I wasn't excited about Utes. I think Utes are an astounding brand. I think it has immense potential, but I thought the lack of like substantial infrastructure associated with the things that they were used to on Seoul being non-existent here was going to be a recipe for disaster initially, because people are going to be like, dude, there's nothing over here. 90% of the Seoul, like, this thing about this way, and I think it's even worse than that. 97, maybe 99% of the people that hold Utes, their Utes are in Polygon, but they're still degening and trading on Seoul. Like, they don't trade in Poly. They trade on Seoul. They're still there. I was like, damn, my kid is over there and there's nothing I can do about it. So I have to still be over here and do what I'm doing. And I think my initial assessment to my community was what, like, they're coming over here. Do not expect them to come pump your bags. Don't expect them to sweep our floors. And don't expect them to immediately embrace being a Polygon project, because I don't think anybody would be able to just swap their mentality associated with all the success that you've had on another chain and then transition essentially to a chain that has no other competitive like project in that particular price realm. Like, no one's trading. There's no Trump NFT community space. No. That doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Right, but they were considered the number one traded project on Polygon, but no one talks about it. They don't. Half of the people that own the NFTs are in their mid 30s and 40s and never even touched an NFT Twitter, and yet they have the NFT in their wallet. And I think when Utes came over, I was like, all right, what we'll do is, as a community, if people ask, we'll educate them. I created this thing called the containment zone in my Discord, which was literally specifically to educate Utes inbounding into our community. Because if you're on the chain and the only way you can look at what's happening is on Magic Eden, that sucks. And like, I'm rocking a Magic Eden hoodie, and they were aware that their support side to Polygon was lacking. Right, you really could only see trending volume, 6 hour, 12 hour, 24 hour, but like, you don't got any analytical perspective associated with it. So I knew when the Utes came over, we didn't have our tool ready, so they weren't going to be able to utilize it. And I didn't expect them to buy our project because they don't have anything, no historical data to look at. To be honest with you, we've only been in Polygon for 60 days. Yeah. But I feel like I'm an old man. Like, I've been here for forever. Like, it's just crazy. And I think, I'm a 007 Ute holder. Like, I have a DHOD. But at the end of the day, in my gut, I thought, man, maybe, this is going to be rough. But once again, a lot of times when you plant a seed, you don't bear the fruit of it that moment. You have to see the long term. And I think what they did was look at the long term play here. Despite the speculation of them being paid or whatever you want to call it, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, I think the Utes have the biggest upside potential because they already have a recognized brand that's been established, that has a great branding IP. It's distinct. And you're in a chain that has so much tremendous upside. I think if people stop focusing on the now and focus on what can be, if they just focus around cherishing and like, imagine if all the Ute holders were like, dude, Polygon is going to be dope. We're going to make it dope over here. We're going to embrace this shit and like really get in behind it. I think the entire mentality would have been totally different associated with it, because I think people were just kind of like, it was lackluster. Like they were expecting something totally. And I think, and I'm telling you, and I can speak for the majority of Polygon founders, most people were let down when the transition happened. Because I swear, everyone thought it was going to be Christmas Day, and the next day that the youths were going to get over there, that all the floors were going to pump to Valhalla, and that's not what happened. In fact, it was like, dude, it sucks over here. You're seeing threads pop up like, why are we over here? Frank got paid this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, what? This is supposed to be a great situation. Like, how many times do you see cross-chain brands migrate into an obscure chain, or even a foundation, Dust Labs, migrate off a complete chain and just separate them? Like, I was thinking in my head, like, yo, this is genius. Like, this is dope, because like now you've got your foot in multi-chains, and that's the future. And everyone else is just focused on where they're at right then. I'm like, dude, you guys don't get it. You can play both sides of the field now. Like, you are now an official bag holder of the most potent chain, which is ETH. And now you're a part of one of the most high potential chains, which is Polygon. And you still got your roots and soul. Everybody, I go on to inspect, and they still have Utes ranked in the top 20 as a top soul influencer. Because at the end of the day, when you see a Ute PFP, you think Solana. But at the end of the day, it comes down to like the psychology associated with being ripped out of their home native country and drug in somewhere that they didn't necessarily want to go. And like, when in Rome, you got to do what the Romans do. Like, start eating the food, dude. Go out, meet some people, make some friends. Like, I see Polygon spaces, and this is the truth. I'm known for dropping the truth. Polygon spaces with Solana natives that are now on Poly doing their own spaces, and then Polygon natives doing their own spaces. I'm like, dude, come on, people. Like, you guys need to be over here doing spaces with us, just like we need to be doing spaces with you. You're forced to be here. We've built here. We're building here. Let's mingle together so we can get rid of that whole disarray associated with why you're here. You're here now. Like my mom would say, like, hey, you're not at your old school. You're here now, so go make some new friends. You're in a new neighborhood. Get your ass outside and make some friends. And I think that was, and it's slowly changed. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, that's not the way it is now. But initially, there was a thought process that when Utes came over, every floor was going to pump, and it was just going to be, rainbows and lollipops. And it just wasn't that. It was the complete opposite of it. And it was kind of like a letdown. I think a lot of people were let down. Obviously, a lot of people were expecting Frank to come over, but there's just a lot of stuff, mitigating forces and things associated you just don't understand. And I think when they came over here, his best plan of action was to make sure that the Utes guys were happy, and that he could continue to tell them and assure them, like, yo, this is going to work. Trust me on this. Just don't worry. Like, you know what I mean? And like, that was the focus. Not, hey, once we get over there, we're just going to sweep floors, guys, and like be the new kid on the block. No, I didn't expect that. And I don't think anybody that had common sense didn't expect that. But there was a vast majority of people on Polygon that expected the Utes, when they migrated, that there was going to be a shit ton of volume. And it just wasn't that. I think if anything, people were buying more Utes that people were peeling out of the collection, because they were like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. And then people were kind of like the snake eating its tail kind of thing, right? We wanted to make sure we sustain that continuity. And a lot of Poly people bought Utes that would have never bought them because they're like, dude, this is kind of dope. Like, they're here now. Let's embrace it. So like, we've embedded ourselves. I think 3 out of 4 of my core team have Utes. Right, I've got a couple Utes. I've got a D-God. I think Frank and those guys are doing some really cool stuff. And I think, despite everybody's reservation about them transitioning to Polygon, I think it was a genius move. And I think he'll reap the benefits of that seed that he planted way beyond the people that complained about it in this moment right now in time, because they're short-sighted. Because, like, once again, you don't harvest the seed the moment you post it and you put it in the ground. You have to let it curate. You have to let it grow. And I think we're in that stage, and I think the Utes being here is a great move for us as an ecosystem. Because there was, I mean, no knock to anybody that was building it. I say this vocally all the time. You guys just didn't take it serious. Polygon just wasn't taking it serious. They were cool being mediocre. You got to have that hunger. You got to have that desire to raise the cream of the crop. Like, that's what you want to be. And when you've got a blue chip project migrating into your ecosystem, it puts everybody on notice. I was already, when we launched with Owlpha and Polygon, I was already like, yo, we're coming here to be the top, period. So when the Utes came over and everybody's like, damn, Utes over here, what does that put us? Shit, whatever, we're 2. That's cool.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with being 2 right now, but hey, we're going to keep shooting our shot and doing what we have to, because the objective is to make Polygon appealing to people outside of the chain. So if only thing is over here is Utes, no one's going to go buy this. Like, the reason why Solana is appealing is because on any given Sunday, there could be 5 or 6 really exciting things going on. Not this, you can't necessarily say that for Polygon all the time. And that's one of the reasons why I think people were apprehensive and why people had like this reservation. Like, I don't really know how I feel about this, because there's nothing to be excited about. You go to Seoul, you just tons, right? You just plenty of things going on. Well, maybe not right now, but like in the past, there was always something going on. And like, even with Ethereum, it's just like, that just, it never sleeps, right? I call Ethereum New York City, because it's the chain that never sleeps. Like, there's always something going on. But
I think a big part of that is that it just takes time, right? Like, when I first got into NFTs, I got into Solana NFTs, right? And then I dove into Ethereum NFTs probably a few months after that. Yeah. And then at the time, I was like, man, Ethereum NFTs are where it's at. And then like 2 months after that, Ethereum NFTs bored me, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm back to Solana," right? And now I'm like, I see the positives in each chain, right? And I see now, after getting to know you, I see the positives in Polygon, right? Like, I see the room. There's a lot of room for growth, right? Yep. And that was one of the exciting things to me about Solana when I first got into it. Is I was like, dude, I can't afford a mutant ape. I can't afford a bored ape. Like, so, okay, let me see what I can afford on Solana, right? And so, even with Solana at the time was like $250, right? So it was like, my money wasn't even going that far, right? But I was like, okay, I see this ability for it to grow, right? And I remember at the time, all these Ethereum people were shitting on Solana, right? Then as DeGods have kind of come over to Ethereum, as we've seen some more other projects from Ethereum that have come over and checked out Solana projects, and kind of vice versa, we've seen the growth of kind of that intermingling there, right? Now there's far more people that kind of support Ethereum, support Solana, and it's good to see. Right. Then we've got Polygon over here, and it's almost like you've got this almost like let's say it's two families, it's like second marriages, right? And they come in, we got Solana, we got Ethereum, it's like a second marriage, and they're realizing, okay, actually we start to like each other, right? And then all of a sudden you find out that one of the parents had a kid you didn't know about, right? And that's Polygon, right? Yeah. And so you're like, holy shit, we just got used to kumbaya between the two of us, and now we got this other person we got to worry about, and you got Polygon coming in, right? And to me, the way I look at it is, once again, it's room for growth, right? And I think that's an exciting thing. I think that's something that we should be excited about, right? And so even, when I heard that we were going over to Polygon, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I should be excited yet. Like, right. I don't know. I don't know enough about how do we buy on there? What wallet do I use? Whatever. And then it was like right after that, and this is once again, I go room for growth. Right after that, Phantom announces that they're going to have Polygon directly in Phantom. I was like, okay, I love that. That means I don't need to get a new wallet, right? Then I heard Magic Eden was launching their marketplace with Polygon. I was like, cool, I don't need to get used to a new marketplace. This is great, right? And then I was like, okay, now my challenge is I need to get to know people in the ecosystem, right? And so I reached out to Sandeep. I do want to get him on the podcast. I think that would be an awesome episode. I think that would be a cool way to really, really grow that connection again, is for people to actually hear from the person who's building it, right? And so that would be awesome. I would love to make that happen. And then, I connect with you, and I was like, hey, this is somebody that I can, if I'm going to have anybody be the first project from Polygon that's on my podcast, I wanted it to be you after we connected. And so I was like, dude, when's your flight come? Like, did you book it yet? Let's get this going. Because I was excited, and I knew that, like, I knew that when people heard from you that they were going to go, hey, this is somebody who's actually building. This is not a grifter. This is not somebody who just sees a money grab opportunity. This is somebody who actually knows their shit, knows the space, has served our country and done great things for the world. And like, you know, and thank you for that. And then also has spent time getting to know the ecosystem, has spent time in, you know, blockchain in general, has spent time focusing on what it takes to build. And that's where I was like, hey, I believe in this guy. I'm excited for other people to get to know him, learn for what he's doing. And I'm excited to document the journey of what you guys are doing over at Owlpha. So, okay, so now my next question for you is so obviously you had created the IP for Owlpha, you know, kind of a long time ago, right? And you were kind of figuring out, okay, where do I want to go with it and everything like that. Once you figured out, okay, hey, we're going to build this out on Polygon, what was your goal for Owlpha? Like in a perfect world, a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever. Let's go a year from now because the space moves too quick to even focus on 2 years from now. But a year from now, what do you want Owlpha to be known for?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think when we initially came up with the brand, it was I think the fundamental focus and utility was around providing Polygon what it was lacking. Because like I said, I come from a traditional Web 2 background, understanding when there's a need, if you fill that need, that's the key to prosperity in business in general. So looking at, and there just being a litany of opportunities for utility functionality on the chain where it was non-existent. And I'm like, dude, they don't have an analytical platform. Like even when you go to Magic Eden, you can't even see charting. Like I want to see charts. Like I live in the charts because that's how we make decisions. We look at rarity. These are things that help us become more efficient traders. And I thought, you know, Owlpha is a great name. It's a play on words, right? Owlpha. Some people say, oh, Owlpha, but it's just Owlpha. Don't overthink it. It's Owlpha. It's the number one used adjective in the space, the term alpha, right? And outside of rug, I think it's like number 1 and 2, right? Yeah. Rug and alpha. And I was thinking, why? Let's make it transcend beyond just an IP and a thought, but be a thing, right? And the term alpha is transcending in many spaces, right? And I felt like what we were building was mostly, yeah, we want the utility tool to be focused, but like Owlpha was just like my incubator for my lab. Like it was a proof of concept. Like, okay, once Owlpha goes, then we can bring out the big picture of what we're trying to do with Manifest Labs is to build multiple IPs and create an expansive ecosystem that allows people to fluidly move in experience and be rewarded for conviction over time and have that fundamental aspect, which is the utility. That was the first 3 weeks I pitched Owlpha, I never talked about half of the stuff that people are seeing right now because the objective was to drive conviction in the stuff that I was talking about by just essentially elaborating and highlighting the very obvious thing that was missing. How do you guys look at what's happening? How can you trade on a chain with no analytical tools? Like there's no way you can be efficient like this. How are you even an NFT community if you don't have a tool? You must have tools, right? So Owlpha was that answer to that question or that problem. Like we were going to build a tool. We haven't put the tool out yet because we're trying to make it, we're hyper focused on all the intuitive features, functions associated with it. And we also know there's a huge weight kind of placed on this now. Like there's like an expectation. We came in with no expectation. Now we have the most expectation and we want to make sure it's right. And we know this is going to service the entire Polygon ecosystem. It's not like we're dropping in, it's just a niche. And it's just like a little small group of people. Like we know that the ecosystem is going to demand it and want to be on top of it and want to have access. So, you know, when I look at that and the tool was the focus point. But Owlpha, education and motivation were like the fundamentals of it. Because what I was bringing to it was a different vibe of energy. I've listened to countless spaces, Twitter spaces, AMAs inside of Discords. I've listened to it all. Listened to a ton of founders. And over that time, I kind of just put it all together in my brain and computed. It's like, what are they missing? And I was like, what if I do it a bit different? I take all the positive attributes that I saw across that time and I add motivation into it. Self-empowerment, all these self-development things. And then on top of that, give you utility, which then translate to conviction and then consistently rewarding you based on the build path of some of the biggest brands and IPs in the space, which is Yuga Labs, which if you look at it aesthetically, from a business perspective, offers very to little utility, but offers the most utility. Because what is utility? What defines the word utility, right? When I started to think about what we were saying, I was like, dude, I'm an idiot. I'm literally telling people that we're a utility-focused project, and people are only looking for what it is in black and white. They're saying utility, They're going to put an analytical tool together. That's the utility. No, the utility is to reciprocate reward over and over to the holders who have high conviction. That's how you can send all these economical downturns. Yuga Labs has been down and up, but let's be honest with you. If you bought into Yuga Labs and you're an OG holder, you're winning. You're still winning. The only people that can complain are the ones that bought the top. And even them, they could probably say that they won. They just held a little bit too long and didn't take profit, because the last time I checked, they got $100,000 airdrop of Ape.
Yeah.
They got, Mutants got 10K in Ape. They got a Board Gate Kennel Club for free. They still got their vials. They still got the freaking other side. They got those robots that just recently, Yuga has shown you the build path for success, and don't give a damn what anybody thinks. We're going to, mass adoption doesn't come from 10K, 5K collections. It comes from massive collections, multiple brand and IPs. I gave you the prime example earlier, and I think, it's a great moment to mention it. Stan Lee, the creator of Marvel, the creator of The Amazing Spider-Man, which is one of the all-time greatest IPs when it comes to superheroes. And I'm sure at one point when he was in his studio, some guy, some intern or some idiot was like, "Hey, Stan, you should probably stop thinking about Hulk. You should stop thinking about X-Men. You should just focus on Spider-Man, because Spider-Man, if you do anything else, man, it may not work." Now, fast forward decades, Marvel is essentially the biggest IP entity on the face of the earth when it comes to brands, and to when you think of what they've transcended and what they've created. And I look at it from this perspective. When I was telling people that we were going to bring utility, I didn't really even understand what I was saying, because I was talking about the superficial layer of the physical, tangible side of it. Utility is transcending. It is beyond what we rationally think about utility, because it's about reward. It's about excitement. It's about experience. That's utility. Because how many times we get in a project that pumps and does great things, but it's boring? All right, I've got a 2 ETH project. What's now? What do we do now? But it's about excitement. It's about experience. And the thing that was missing from NFTs was emotion. That excitement is why Yuga Labs is so successful, because they continue to drive experience. That is their massive utility. Experience is their utility. So when I was telling the Polygon ecosystem that we were going to bring utility, all I kept harping on was the tool. But in reality, the massive amount of utility we've associated with our success hasn't even been about the tool. We haven't even dropped the tool. It's all about experience. Every bit of our hype and our momentum and our conviction is associated with experience and transparency. And I think, when we got into it, and when we started to build this thing, and we came up with the brand and the idea, and I thought it was great. And then I got to start thinking about it, maybe a couple of weeks ago. I was thinking, dude, I was talking to Pixel's best friend. I was like, dude, what is happening, bro? What is really happening right now? He was like, dude, I have no clue. I was like, dude, do you realize that we haven't even done anything yet, but we feel like we're already 12 months old? That because we've created so much experience in such a short amount of time, where there was a lack of it, that people have high conviction. And now that conviction has turned into a utility. Conviction is a utility for founders.
Oh, 100%.
Because here's a crazy thought process. And I was talking to one of my mentors. He was like, dude, you gotta shift the paradigm. As much as it's a two-way street, right? From founders to holders to entity to consumers, right? That's how you gotta look at it, because these are businesses. Their utility is conviction for us. So we need to farm as much utility from our holders, which is conviction. Conviction does what? Creates floor price, creates activity, excitement, engagement. Those things are what we figured out, the secret sauce, right? And that was at that moment we had that light bulb, yo, we need to cultivate more utility associated around the actual experience, as well as providing the underlying utility, which is the most superficial one, which is the tool, which in reality, most of our wins and losses aren't based off tools. They're based off gut and experience. Your biggest wins are based on gut and experience, not on some freaking tool. People didn't ape up Bored Ape because they had a freaking analytical tool to look at every day. There wasn't even any analytical tools then. It was because of experience and conviction. It was never done before. It was unprecedented. And that's where I had that moment of aha, I figured it out. Don't beat, I was beating myself up. And I don't say this often to nobody out loud. I was beating myself up. Like I let myself down because we didn't get the tool out as fast as I wanted. But then I started to realize, I was like, but your people are so happy. And they know they're going to get it because I'm transparent and that we've created this utility called experience. Like maybe that's a thing that'll start happening. People will put utility and there'll be a dash. And I remember submitting my application for like Launchpad for Magic Eden. This is a true story. And a part of my utility was the word experience. And I remember one of the business development teams like, hey, what did you mean by the word? You just put experience as utility. Can you elaborate on what that is? And I went into like deep, like I'm talking to you about it. And he was like, I never thought about it like that. I was like, because that is what makes NFT. That's what makes up a great NFT project. It's about experience. I think that's where the Doodles was on a really good rampage because they were doing experience. And then guess what happened? When they stopped focusing on experiences, went dead. And I think that's where we got it right. That's where we figured out. I was focused on the wrong objective points. I was trying to fix the obvious gap, which is the easiest one, but knowing that that would not sustain our hype and our momentum. If I put the tool out, we would have probably fell flat like 100 Matic because it's not exciting. There's nothing sexy about an analytical tool. It's just not. But what's exciting is experiences, and that's the ultimate utility. And that's what we figured out later on. That's why we're doing some of the crazy shit we're doing. Like people are like, yo, what are you guys have so many collections? I'm like, it's experience, bro. It's utility.
I mean, people want to have fun. At the end of the day, I mean, we're once again, we're in a peak bear market. Like, there's not a lot of fun, right? And so that's why you see people interested in different things like ordinals, like the meme coins that are going on, the BRCs, everything like that, because people are looking for something fun to talk about. It's boring to talk about something that nobody cares about, right? And so I think that's, once again, like one of the exciting things about like what's happening in Polygon right now is that pre-Utes moving over there, I don't know why a year ago why somebody would have talked about a Polygon project. It wouldn't have made sense, right? Like there was no reason to do it, right? Because even once again, like the different things like the Trump NFTs and stuff like that, there's no community there. So there's nobody really talking about it, right? And so a year ago, there was no reason for anybody to be talking about Polygon. Now there is, right? And so then as you're building out experiences for your holders and getting them excited about you and your, like, you know, I said to you before we started the podcast, I was like, I don't really want to spend time talking about like your roadmap and shit like that. I'll be honest, I don't care about your roadmap. And the reason why I say that is because if you actually carry out your roadmap, I'm concerned, right? Because the reality of it is, this space moves so quick that if you're stuck to your roadmap, the odds are that you've fallen behind, right? Like you need to pivot. That goes for every NFT project. You need to pivot. And so I was like, what I like to do with this podcast is I want to get to know you and your motivations. Like what actually gets you excited every day? What gets you going every day? What motivates you to succeed and everything like that? That to me is what I'm curious of. And that to me is what your holders should care about, because once again, the roadmap is at that, when you created that roadmap in your mind at that time, that was the best steps for your project, right? But every day you're getting new inputs. Every day you're having new conversations. Every day there's new people coming over to Polygon. Every day there's people building new shit. So therefore, what is the best thing for your project should change rapidly, right? So okay, so so that would be my question for you from there is what is your motivation? What drives you every day to succeed with Owlpha? Like, you know, it is something that you've been building this out for a long time, and for a lot of people, money is the number one motivation, right? And so there's a lot of people that go, hey, I'm going to launch this project. I'm going to put up this fat mint price. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. All of it is to drive money, right? Because they want to, you know, pack their bags. They want to buy themselves a Lamborghini and everything like that.
Of course.
What motivates you with all of this?
Yeah, and that's, you know, and it may sound corny to people, man. To be honest with you, dude, I get excited because it creates change. It, like, you know, we took very little capital in our raise, like maybe 60,000 was like our net raise. Obviously, we've got a partner Launchpad, so they get a percentage, and then you factor in our expense and associated costs with things, and then like it's really peanuts compared to like the average raise on Sol and Ethereum. And the reason is, like, people are like, well, you only took so much money. How can you be so excited? It's like, dude, if you spent your entire life thinking about doing something super cool, like, you're not doing it for money anymore. You love it. You enjoy it. You get up every day excited about it. And the thing is, every single day humbly reminds me that I'm actually making impact. Because I've got people we employ in South America, in Nigeria, in different Philippines, all over the world, right? And then we get these little hot pockets of stories where people are like, dude, You literally changed my life. Like, you changed my life, giving me an opportunity. Like, we've got artists that we've onboarded, that we give them an opportunity. They're shilling in Discord like, hey, anyone need services? They needed this or that. You know, we give them an opportunity. I get excited every day knowing that what I'm building now could transcend me, because the reality is very few times in life we get to be in something in the beginning. Like, most people don't realize that 90% of everything we interact with had already been established. Like, we didn't find it. We didn't find Starbucks. People started talking about it, and then it became a thing, right? And for me, when I look at Polygon, do I think we found it? No. But do I think we found it at the right time and right place? That's exciting to me. I'm an in the trenches type of guy. I'm a builder, a creator. I love launching shit. Like, I love that. Like, I get a rush out of it because that's exciting to me. And maybe that's why I have a dopamine response associated with launching NFT projects, because it's just it's so interesting to me to see how people like zoom around something and just like swarm around it, and all that energy, and just to think all these minds are like happy and excited. And then you can create prosperity opportunities. Like, you know, like I said, I think about self-manifestation. I believe in like full circle and the alchemy. And I also believe in like this whole reciprocated universal law of like, when you do good and when you empower people, whether it's mentally, you know, emotionally or financially, at some point or another, the universe will reciprocate that. And what we've figured out is that, and this is what we figured out, not what everybody else. Everyone else finds their own way of economic impact or whatever they wanted to call. We did a small sizing mint price with the lowest amount of economical impact for the people with the most economical upside. Because now those 19 mentors are, I mean, I've got people with hundreds of Owlpha NFTs in their wallet, and they're sitting at 500 Matic. I mean, that's a lot, right? That's $50,000. And then if they sweat with a lot of conviction, spent $7,000 and it's $50K, and they're still holding. And I think I get a jolt out of it, knowing that like when people, and not that I need someone to remind me that I'm doing something good for them. I just enjoy seeing people genuinely excited. Like, I'm like, dude, this is so cool. Like, imagine how Stan Lee was. I bet you he just went crazy. Like, dude, I'm going to make a guy with aluminium nails come out of his hands. And like, think about where he was in his creative space when he started coming up with all these mini superheroes. Like, where was he? Like, what think tank was he in the moments to, I look at like, and I do this because I studied stuff like this, some of the savants of the world. And I look at a guy like Stan Lee from just all the creative IP he's created. And I'm thinking, how did this guy come up with this shit? Like, this real world, type in Marvel characters on Google, bring it up on your screen, and just look at all the various mini stories he created, dude. You have to be out of your freaking mind. And it had to be so fun to create each one of these narratives and stories and cross metaverses. So I sit back at home in my house with my family thinking, what can I do that has high impact, that can also reciprocate to my own life and impact the people that we're doing it for? And that was the Web3 space. There's no industry like this. There's no industry like this where you can give something and they can reciprocate at this pace, this speed, this fast, if you do it right. And I think our secret sauce has always been low economic raises that take the least amount of liquidity to provide the most opportunity, because we believe in providing that to people. It changes people. It gets people riled up. It gets people excited. And like, I get juiced off of that, dude. Like, I get excited every time I get on the space and I see people lit up and ready to go and fired up and motivating them and getting them like jacked for the morning. It's a Monday morning. We got morning motivation, and I'm going off telling people how important it is to be self-aware of where we're at right now and to be thankful that you got Wi-Fi, running water, because it's easy to get lost in the sauce. Like this, my whole life, everybody that knows me after after the military was like, dude, you need to be a motivational speaker. Like 100,000%. Everybody, my mom, my friends, everybody. And this is like my version of that. It's my opportunity to, one, empower myself in doing something creative from a creative perspective, which is like at the superficial level, like that thrives me. Two, I get to live that dream out and be economically impacted myself while impacting other people. And then three, I get to motivate and impact people on a high level consistently, doing and teaching things about things that I really care about. And I care about that stuff. Like, I always say it, like, maybe in the beginning I felt cheesy because some people don't believe in that type of stuff. But for me, it's the proof's in the pudding. Like, people are slowly changing. And I think that type of ethos associated with this industry changes the entire paradigm and shifts the entire idea of what community is associated with. And like, that's what gets me excited, because I like to do the unknown. I like to do things that are not down the beaten path. That's what gets me up, jolted every day. And also seeing the response from the people when we do this. Like, it's so exhilarating to me. It's exciting to me to be able to wake up and see that, and then see people actually be affected in a positive way, to go through those things with people, to cultivate community. I think it's everybody's dream to be financially sound. I won't say rich, right? Because that's not maybe everyone's opinion, right? But like, when you can find your financial balance and then continue to elevate other people around you, that's when you found that sweet spot. Because like, what is the point if you can't celebrate amongst the people around you? One of the primary reasons I have 13 years of continuity in my team is because these guys have been rocking with me from the beginning. And yet, why would I get enjoyment when they're like, dude, I'm about to go get a house. Like, one of my friends, he's like, dude, I'm house hunting now. This is like, that makes me happy. Like, I get happy knowing that like, he's able to do something. I also get happy when my members are like, I got a guy that lives in South America. Like, he works for us. And like, you know, it's that income that he's making from us has empowered his family, changed their entire, like, it's shifted their entire paradigm of how they believe what is actually possible. To say that you could sit in your house for 12 hours a day on a computer and make a full-time income is actually insane. Like, it's really insane to think of that. And then to think that you can extend that actual, like, you can help people to do stuff like that. Like, you know, I was talking to my buddy last night about something which was really crazy. And like, and I think most founders can say this, when you open up a project, you get tons and tons of people looking for requests to be like moderators and community managers. They even got their resumes, and like, I've had people airdrop their resume into my wallet. Like, it's crazy. And I'm just thinking, like, there's a business, there's a need for that. There's people that are hungry that are in lower, you know, GPA community, like ecosystems in the real world in Web 2, that are looking for opportunity in a space that is provided the most prosperity opportunity to anything in the human history. Like, the blockchain is like the ultimate pool of resource if you know how to like maintain it and how to manage it and know how to utilize it. So when I see people like come into our Discord looking for jobs, I'm like, dude, I wish I could hire all these people. Guess what it did? One of my buddies, he's big into like philanthropy and helping people. And I was like, dude, he was like, we're talking on the phone last night. He was like, man, like, you just got me like fired up on something. I was like, what? He was like, dude, all those people that hit you up for jobs, I'm going to create a cash pool. I'm going to pay them. I'm going to go out and outsource them and get them jobs, and just leverage our relationships with these communities to get them hired. So they don't have to go shill in the server. Just go straight to you, and then you employ them like a tip service. And you're economically empowering people from different sociological backgrounds. You don't know where people are. I tell people all the time, like, it's cringy when you see somebody in your DMs or your Twitter asking for money, but you really don't know where they are at and where they are in their life. It would be ignorant of us to assume that person's a troll, because what if it is real? Yeah. I actually, one of the people that we hired, true story, I thought he was trolling me, only to really find out that he really was in the situation that he was in, and that he wouldn't even sell his NFT. Like you mentioned earlier, some guys that are not in great financial state won't sell their NFT gods because they have that high level of conviction. And then I said, well, how do I continue to economically impact them and inspire them and instill the courage to do more? And that's why I get up every morning. I get excited about that. Like, 'cause I get to be a motivational speaker 3 times a week to my community, and I get to help them and we get to experience really cool shit. Like, we're sitting around, Alpha's out. It's kind of like dry right now. I'm thinking, what can we do to draw some excitement? And like, what would be the most unexpected thing a Polygon project could do right now? Do an ordinals mint. Because most people look at an ordinals mint to something that has financial stability, high floor price, and it makes sense. There's got to be demand for it. Not here. Our community loved the idea. And some people were like, dude, like I'm saying, people cashed out on ordinals. And we have an ordinal Rainer mint. It was just like 100 alphas.
Well, let me ask you about that real quick. Because here's what I want to do. So we're about an hour and 25 into this, right?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to make sure we don't go too long. I think here's the reality of this. I know you and I are going to be doing multiple podcasts, because
right.
I've got probably another 20 questions that I could ask you, and we'd be sitting here. This would be a 3.5 hour long podcast, and I might, that'd be rough for the edit on that. So
right.
So here's what I want to do. I want to wrap up with a few things, and one of that is the multi-chain expansion, right? Like I saw that you guys are doing some Bitcoin ordinals. I've also, we've now seen Solana projects, Ethereum projects that have done stuff on Polygon, that have done done stuff on Bitcoin, but we haven't really seen somebody on Polygon do something on these other chains, right?
Right.
So I would say this, and I'll say with a concise answer, where do you see, like, what do you see yourself expanding to with some of these other blockchains, and do you think do you see that as becoming a more normal thing from projects that are building something really cool on Polygon expanding to some other blockchains instead of other blockchains expanding to Polygon, kind of seeing that migration the opposite way too?
Yeah, well, and that's a great segue, because here's the thing, right? I'm in Polygon as a native. All I hear is, oh, there are big projects coming from ETH. Why is the narrative associated with larger projects moving to our chain? Why don't we move to their chain, right? Yep. And that was the logic behind it. It was like, I saw a great opportunity for brand recognition and IP expansion into Bitcoin. So we did Bitcoin ordinals. We sold that out. Success. That's 2 projects in the span of less than 30 days that sold out on Polygon, which is unprecedented. So we've already expanded to Bitcoin ordinals. We're on gamble.io. We've got some traction. People love them, and we're deeply got some partnerships. And then I was thinking a deep layer, to go a layer deeper to that. I was like, all right, we did that. We've airdropped them. They've got this. Like, what's the next frontier that is unventured? And like, obviously, if you know the analytics, you're looking at the data, there's a lot of people migrating from Solana to Polygon. Like, that's a thing. It's slow, but it's happening. Like, they're begrudgingly coming. So I thought, how do I accelerate that? So obviously, this kind of segues to that point. We dropped a project in Solana. It's called Bumbleclot. And the idea was to use one of the most used terms on the blockchain, which was MFer, because that's what Bumbleclot means. For those people that understand Jamaican.
Oh, I didn't even know that's what that means. Okay.
So like the word Bumbleclot is actually derived from a tampon that was created in Jamaica. True to word, blood clot, Bumbleclot, right? In your bum, clot blood. Anyways. So, and then there's a slang term for MFer, and then we try to make it cool with this whole bomb head character, and we put it out there as a degenerate and soul. The idea was,
and it's not out yet, right?
No, it's not out. It's in the launch phase right now. It's drummed up quite a bit of hype, but it's in that infancy of structure, right? But the idea was, just to kind of be quick about it, the idea was that now a Polygon native builder with a very successful IP and brand and lab that's slowly growing, is growing rapidly, has expanded into Bitcoin with ordinals. And now it's Sol, and now we're setting a precedent that I think will be a narrative that's associated with founders in the future, that there's no such thing as this whole singularity when associated to chains anymore. Because the objective is Web3 adoption, not Sol, ETH, or Polygon adoption. It is the overall Web3 adoption. And my obsession is, how do I, one, represent our community in the most effective way, provide the most expansive brand recognition and IP recognition across the chains, and do it right with integrity, and do it with the least amount of economical impact with the highest amount of upside. That's our focus. And we called a degen mint, low income, low impact mint on Sol, showing we can do some really cool art, do some dope things with minimum resources. And then we can onboard, which we have done, probably like 40, 50 people that never wanted to look at Polygon. Just because of Bumbleclot, they came over to Polygon and are excited. And coming up in a couple weeks, I plan on doing a spaces for, Owlpha, Galactic Eagle, which is another one of the airdrop projects, Ring Runners, which is one of our hype mints coming out on Polygon, and Ordinals with Bitcoin and Bumbleclot from Sol, all under Manifest Labs on the same space, a big giga community space. And I think that's a transcending thought process, because now we're bridging the gap. We're forcing them. True story. My last space is with Bumbleclot, right? I get on stage. I said, dude, I want to put you guys on notice. All you Sol maxis, listen to me clearly. Now that you're a part of Manifest Labs, you will be taught what Polygon is. It is required to be a part of my ecosystem, that you erase the thought process of singularity. Like, who eats burgers their whole life? You don't like Chinese food? You don't like fried chicken? You don't like pasta? Like, the idea that you have to be like, dude, this is what people don't understand. And I could be completely wrong. This could be a horrible take. But when I look at what Utes and D guys have done, they're essentially doing it, but they just took the existing brands and transcended them across the different planes by providing more expansive IP awareness for their overall Web 2 entity, which is Dust Labs. Like, the big chess move is not, they're not looking at, like, when you're a chess player, you're thinking in 3 dimensions. Everyone's just looking at the pawns in the front. They're not thinking about what the play is being set up. I think, and this is just my take, the idea to move your brands to larger chains or to disassociate or move them into different chains, providing you way more brand awareness and chains that would not necessarily be aware of you, while still maintaining all the accolades and success that you accomplished on the primary chain, which was Sol, and now you've expanded your brand and IP to other chains and give you a litany of opportunity and upside for your community that they are unable to see currently because they're so focused on what they didn't get. I think what they did get is a massive opportunity to do something that is unheard of when you think about what brands and how they resonate with chains and how they resonate as Web3. It is a bigger picture idea to focus on. The objective is to widen the view of your brand and IP and to bring on more people from Web 2 into Web 3, not to Sol, ETH, or Poly. The objective is simple. We as the Web 3 community and the blockchain communities should be focused on how do we make the chains and the NFT communities look better so that way we can onboard more people no matter what medium they choose to come into. And that's our focus. And I think that's what we're trying to get across. I think people will understand it. And I think hopefully it makes sense. I mean, you got to do some crazy stuff sometimes to shake the world up. And this is our way of doing it, man. I don't think most people would expect a Polygon native project builder, even though I'm really a ETH builder, to come into their ecosystem because Sol is its own beast. And I'm looking for, I told you earlier when we were talking, like, I want the smoke. I want the smoke with Sol. I want them to come. I want them to see what we're about. And I want them to understand that the Polygon community was associated with this are just straight diamond handers. And they understand the ethos that we're trying to preach. And then we're going to expose them to a different type of behavior associated with founders and creators in the space, man. I think it's going to be cool.
You just missed that, but I just caught a gnat with my hand. That was actually one of my most impressive athletic accomplishments there. It was flying in front of me.
I was wondering, boom.
I just grabbed that boy right there. Boom. Sorry, gnat. Oh,
That's crazy.
Oh, that thing was flying and bothering the shit out of me. But no, dude, I love that. I love that. I think it's once again, I think at the end of the day, like our goal should always to break down barriers in life in general, right? Like we have so many, we have cultural barriers, we have language barriers, we have just overall like cultural barriers is a huge thing, right? Like we have actual barriers, right? Like there's so many barriers in life, and our goal should always be to break those down, because when you have more conversation with people, even if you don't think you'll have common bonds, you always will. It doesn't matter what somebody's like. It doesn't matter how different than you think they are. You will always have a common bond with somebody. And to me, that's always my favorite aspect of life, is the more people you get to know. Yes, you're not going to agree on everything. God, we're never going to agree on everything. Yeah, right. But like, dude, you're always going to find some sort of common bond. That's been one of my favorite aspects of Web3 is I've gotten to know so many different people that if it wasn't for Web3, I probably wouldn't have met them, right? If Utes doesn't go over to Polygon, I probably never meet you, right? Like, who knows, right? And so it's like, who knows where this relationship will go? Who knows what's going to happen with this whole NFT space and everything like that? But the more people that we interact with, the more people we have conversation with, the more people we get to know, the more exciting stuff is going to happen in this space. And the more we break down barriers and the less infighting there is and stuff like that, the more that we're actually going to be able to build this thing and make it something that people want to be in and want to be a part of. So, okay, so here's my last question for you, because once again, we could go for 3 hours, but I know we should wrap it up at some point. What is the thing that you're most excited about right now with the future Owlpha and everything that you guys are doing with Manifest Labs?
You know what it is? I think it's if I had to pinpoint one thing, I think it's just how robust we are with these brands, man. Like the potential. We're currently looking at a couple situations to own our own esports team, which is a huge multi-billion-dollar industry. We're getting into the gaming space, right? From the lower level tiers, not Unreal Engine. We're talking like nostalgic pixel-based style gaming, small impact, don't consume a lot of time, but really engaging type of things. And I think, if I had to like pinpoint, it's just like being so dynamic with like IP expansion, like, because to me, I want to be like Marvel, bro. Like that's my dream. Like if I had anything, like when I look at the things that I wanted to do most as a kid, right? One of them was to be a scientist. 2 was to be a game developer, to build my own games and IPs. And then 3 was to like, just be creative, just do really cool things, be like the Willy Wonka of a space and do some really dope stuff. And I think that's really what excites me about Owlpha and what we're doing with Manifest Labs is like, we want to push the boundaries of what people believe is possible and what's right and wrong. I think that's just a horrible narrative to associate with. I think, I got to go back to the whole analogy with Stan Lee. Like there was some guy that said, dude, just stick with Spider-Man. And we would have been robbed of so many great Marvel characters and storylines and multiverse experiences had he done that. And I think the way my mind works at this speed is just like, dude, I want to do really cool stuff and just create these brands and do it right? Like, I'm not trying to oversaturate myself or spread myself thin, because, that usually is associated with this, but having the right people in place and being very self-aware of what I'm doing is my focus. And I think I get excited every morning when I think up, like, dude, what can we do? What's something cool we can do to offer to these people? What's something more expansive that we can do? And I think expanding our minds into like the collectible range, like, I think that's something I want to explore, because I'm a card collector. I think that's a huge industry, right? Multi-billion-dollar industry in the sports cards and in Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. Like, all those genres have huge upside. And I think there's something to be said about that. There's something to be said about gaming, as well as like merchandising and like, things like that. So there's a lot of things we're talking about. And I'm just excited to be a part of history, man. Like, doing something on Polygon that hasn't been done before and making the chain great. And like, being one of the voices that represent the space, I think is like what really gets me pumped. Like, I enjoy it every morning. Like, the Polygon team reaches out to me. It's like, dude, we're rolling out this. What do you guys think about this? I'm like, dude, that's sick. I'm honored to be considered to have that information, that they care enough what I think about it. Like, that's just crazy. That's a $1 billion entity is saying, dude, what do you think about this? That blows me away. That gets me excited in the morning when I look at my Telegram, which is manic as it is, with millions, just dozens of people hitting me, to see Polygon and reaching out to me. Was like, dude, we're thinking about rolling this out. Like, what do you think about this? And it's like, dude, I get to see this from behind the scenes. That's so sick. Like, I get to see some of the tech advancements and what, new initiatives and activations they're trying to push out. And, that associated with Owlpha is that these guys have partnered with us. They have locked arms with our entity and said, dude, we believe in you guys. We know what you guys are trying to do, and we understand and we respect your ethos, and we're excited to see what you're going to do. And that, to me, is what gets me pumped, because now it's so cool to have the respect of people to trust you, to believe in what you're doing. And I'm like, dude, like, I tell my people all the time, like, I am so humbled and thankful that my community believes in my crazy ideas and are rocking with me, and they've benefited from it, right? Like, there's no like sell shame and like, dude, take profit along this ride. But dude, it's been an unreal experience, and I just get so excited, dude. It's like, that's what, like, just the development side of what we can do, the endless possibilities of what we can do, and the support from Polygon and Magic Eden, while I'm rocking the Magic Eden, and I know people have bipolar opinions about Magic Eden, but dude, they're one of the most active marketplaces that actually touch their people. I don't care what nobody says, and this is not a shield at all. It's just the freaking facts. If you step back from a 360 wide range view, OpenSea doesn't give 2 zeros about anybody else. They're not talking to you in the trenches. I actually can say, and what, if you're listening to this OpenSea, I'm just saying, I see, even though you guys command the most volume out of all the marketplaces and aggregators and whatever, Magic Eden shows the most community support from the business development side when it comes to their communities in there. And I think that's super important. And that's why, I'm bullish. I mean, and they support obviously Solana projects and Ethereum projects, but just when I'm speaking in regards to like Polygon, it's super sick to me. And I think that's a big deal for me. So, dude, I wake up juiced every day, man. I literally wake up like hype, like, yo, what can we do today? Like, we just dropped the game trailer for Alpha Rush, which is like a pixel nostalgic, like, asteroid shooter with the like, these are things that I dreamed to do as a kid. Like, I can't go into like first person shooters and like MMOs yet, right? But slowly building stepping stones, doing really cool things, being innovative, and then having the support of the blockchain and the ecosystem. I mean, it's a recipe for success, man. I can't be thankful for anything more. Like, I really am in that chi zone right now where I just feel like, yo, this is dope. Like, it's gonna
be fun, man. It's gonna be fun. All right, so here's my last thing for you, and I'm gonna hold you to this. You got to give me an elevator pitch. If I'm somebody right now who's looking to get into Alpha, if I'm, whether somebody who's already on Polygon, whether it's somebody on Solana or ETH, give me the 30-second elevator pitch. Why should somebody be excited about why should they believe in you as the founder of Owlpha, as somebody who's, doing all these really cool things? Why should they believe in you to bring success to Owlpha?
Well, and, it's funny you asked this question, because I do have a really great pitch. And I look at, and this is what I would say. If you're looking for a community with a transparent founder that's going to live and die by his words, that's going to lay out on a sword for you, that's going to fight tooth and nail to push the agenda forward, that's going to scrap on any stage at any given time and make sure they put the most, articulate, professional response and understanding of what we're doing as a company. One, understand that we're a business and not just an NFT project, but we married the two, right? So Web3, understand that our function and focus is to provide utility from the surface layer, which helps impact traders, to our primary utility is an experience, is an excitement, and providing utility to reciprocate it to the holders time and time again. And that we are not coming from a founder perspective, that we're coming from a consumer perspective. I'm doing the things that I would love to have experienced as a consumer from a project. And that's our mission every day, to come from that perspective. Because the biggest brands in Web 2 understand the mentality and the psychology associated with their consumers. And that's our focus point at Manifest Labs and with Owlpha, and anything we do is coming from the consumer perspective. And if you want to be a part of something that focuses on your experiences and reciprocating value to you at the highest level, while it's giving you the aesthetic values, such as like the utilities and analytical tools, then we're the place to be. Because at the end of the day, it's very hard to find transparent, articulate professional leaders in the space that understand from a consumer perspective what's necessary to be successful, as well as being able to provide that underlying utility we just discovered, which is experience, the biggest utility in the blockchain. And I think in general, if you look at the history of business in general, the top brands and companies focus on experience. Look, prime example, and I'll end my elevator pitch. One of the #1 luxury brands in the world, their slogan is the ultimate luxury experience. That's BMW. It's about experience, and we want to be one of the biggest IP brands in all of Web3, and we want to provide the most immersive experiences possible. And we think that and know that we have the right build power, the right team, the right continuity, and the understanding necessary to do so. And the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. 60 days old, when we've generated more revenue than anybody had assumed that we would have done. And the focus point has been on providing value to our holders from the very beginning and taking the absolute least amount possible to provide the value that we have done. And that's a transcending concept. And if they look back, anybody listening to this, if you look back at what you've done and what you've given a project and what you've reciprocated in return, it will pale in comparison to what our community has done. Because I think the objective from the beginning was to reciprocate as much value to our holders as possible and to make sure that we gave them an immersive experience every single step of the way. And like sometimes, man, it seems crazy, but it's possible because we want to focus on experience and that utility associated with experience, because that's the bread and butter of Web3.
That's facts. That's facts. Drop the mic. Drop the mic. Well, hey, man, this has been awesome. I've enjoyed this. But dude, I know we're going to end up running this back at some point. Of course. I love chatting with you, and I love your energy and passion. And like I always say, I'll always bet on somebody who's energetic and passionate about what they're doing, because nobody has the answers to everything in life, but I'll always bet on passionate people to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So you have that passion, you have that drive. I could tell from our first phone call to the first Twitter space I was in with you to the first hour that you were here that we were just shooting the shit before we started the podcast. You have that drive, you have that passion, and I'm excited to see it play out, and I'm going to have to get me an alpha. So
yeah, bro, let's go.
But dude, appreciate it, and appreciate everybody tuning in. And dude, we'll be back soon, and excited for the future Alpha. It's going to be a fun time, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, man. Anytime. Let's do this again soon.
100%. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.
See you guys.